The opening of this story pulls you directly into the reality of trench warfare, not with dramatics, but with the kind of detail that matters to anyone who takes history seriously. Soldiers lived in conditions that stripped away every convenience: mud that swallowed boots, cold that cracked skin, and equipment that had to function even when nothing else did. And out of those brutal circumstances came a piece of survival gear so simple, so brutally effective, and so underrated that it almost disappears in many retellings of the First World War. Yet this tool not only kept soldiers alive and mobile during the worst years of the conflict, it remains fully functional and practical for modern outdoor work, homesteading, and emergency preparedness. It was built on necessity, refined by hardship, and today stands as one of the most useful pieces of minimalist gear a person can own. The point of focusing on this item is not nostalgia. It's because when soldiers had nothing but wet wool, freezing earth, and unreliable supply lines, this simple hack proved itself again and again. And if it worked in those conditions, it works anywhere. After about a minute of drawing viewers in with the context and grit of trench survival, the story can move straight into the heart of the subject. The humble but powerful World War I trench gear, known as the trench periscope staff, sometimes called the observation stave. Now it was a collapsible wooden or steel-shafted tool that combined visibility, reach, leverage, and structural strength all into one piece of equipment. It's easy to assume that trench periscopes were merely a way to look over the parapet without, taking a bullet from a sniper. But the more complete story is that soldiers used reinforced periscope staffs as multifunction survival tools when nothing else was available. Units treated them like a hybrid between a periscope, a probe, a walking staff, and a tool for trench maintenance. The design was picked for portability and strength because, soldiers knew it had to endure being shoved into frozen mud, jammed into timber walls, and hauled around in darkness. A reinforced periscope could be used to check no man's land without risking a headshot, but it also became a stabilizer for soldiers climbing out of shell holes, a probe for testing ground stability before taking a step, and even a support for makeshift stretchers. In the worst waterlogged trenches, men used these staffs to measure water depth and find solid footing beneath ankle-deep sludge. The credibility of this tool came not from theory, but from years of continuous field use, where the stakes were life or death. The construction of the tool is the real lesson, because simplicity kept it alive. The structure was plain, a wooden or metal shaft, sometimes sectional, with a mirror assembly at the top set at a fixed angle and a viewing slot near the bottom. That simplicity was the entire advantage. No moving optics, no fragile glass beyond the basic mirror, no gear that jammed in mud. Because it had no delicate mechanisms, soldiers used it in ways never intended. They jammed the staff against trench supports as a temporary brace, used it as a drying pole for socks near small trench stoves, and even relied on it as a close-quarter striking tool when ambushed during patrols. This kind of adaptability is exactly what makes the tool useful for modern survivalists today. A single piece of straight-grained hardwood, a metal ferrule at the base, and a simple mirror attached near the top recreates the function without special manufacturing. You know, some modern reenactors like to add hinge points, but the original purpose was really about durability rather than just making things more complicated. And honestly, that's the version that makes the most sense for practical outdoor work. The thing is, the concept doesn't actually require any specialized materials. Anyone can start with a good, sturdy piece of hardwood about chest height, just like a walking staff. Then you'd attach a metal bracket or maybe a wooden block that's been cut to hold a small angled mirror at the upper end. The main thing is making sure that mirror stays steady even when things get a bit rough. Once you've got the top sorted, the lower end can be capped with a metal point. That way, the staff can double as a probe or even as a stabilizing tool if you need it. Used properly, it becomes a way to check terrain before crossing it. In marshy or wooded ground, pressing the staff ahead of each step immediately reveals weak soil. On homesteads with uneven ground or tall brush, it lets a person inspect areas before walking through them, especially when hidden obstacles like holes or debris are possible. In disaster scenarios such as floods or landslides, the staff becomes invaluable for gauging depth, clearing small barriers, or scanning over rises without exposing the head. The periscope function makes it possible to observe wildlife, livestock, or unknown human activity from a protected or concealed position without raising the body above cover. While this may not matter in daily life, it becomes essential in remote camping, off-grid scenarios, or property security during outages. And because it is fundamentally just a strong staff with a mirror, it doubles as a mobility aid on long hikes, a drying pole for clothing, and even a simple carry pole for small loads. The trench periscope staff became a symbol of improvisation. Soldiers used it because it required no fuel, no battery, no fragile components, and no supply chain. You know, it proved that a tool rooted in basic physics and good materials can outperform anything overly engineered. For outdoor enthusiasts, historians, and survivalists today, it serves as a reminder that, the simplest gear often lasts the longest, and honestly saves the most energy. It also demonstrates how frontline soldiers thought creatively in extreme conditions. They transformed a reconnaissance device into a multi-use survival tool because, well, they had no choice. That mindset, finding durability in simplicity, is just as relevant today for anyone who works the land, prepares for emergencies, or values self-reliant equipment that does not rely on technology. If you want more deep, practical breakdowns of historical survival tools that earned their place through real hardship, make sure to subscribe to Backyard Wisdom and, share this guide with fellow enthusiasts who appreciate the hard lessons history offers.